I made an indie game in a single month with one rule. On day 30, I needed to release the game, no matter how broken it is. I've been making games for about 3 years now. In that time, I've started about 50 of them, and of those 50, I've released a grand total of 2. That's a success rate of about 4%. It took me way too long to realize this, but the way I've been building games almost guarantees I won't finish them. So this time, I've changed the rules to something that gives me no choice but to finish. The rules are simple. I have exactly 30 days to make a game. No excuses, no extensions. Whatever exists at the end of this month is getting released, whether I like it or not. So I started the first week by doing something that goes completely against my usual process. I didn't plan a single thing. No design document, no roadmap, not even a mood board, which, if you've been on this channel for long enough, you know is basically like an act of self-treason. Normally, this is the place where I get stuck. I convince myself that if I don't plan every little detail meticulously at the beginning, the entire project will fall apart later. But this time, planning felt like a trap I needed to avoid, so instead of thinking, I just started building. I decided I was going to make a party-based auto-battler. The concept is simple. Your party fights enemies automatically using different attacks on a timer, and you upgrade your attacks to push further into a run. No complex inputs, no massive systems, just making simple decisions and seeing what happens. Week 1 was all about making the most bare bones version of that idea possible. Characters auto-attacked, numbers went down, animations played. I wouldn't exactly call it riveting gameplay, but it worked. And honestly, that was the most surprising part. In just 1 week, I had a playable build right in front of me. Not just a prototype, a real, testable game. Now, I'm not going to pretend like week 1 was perfect. I constantly found myself slipping into old habits. Scope creep, over-designing systems, making art before testing. I didn't even bother naming the game yet. It felt a bit too early, and honestly, I didn't think it mattered that much. But despite all that, I kept pushing forward, which to me made week 1 a success. I just didn't realize yet that this was the easy part. Going into week 2, I felt great. The game was playable, we already have a functioning gameplay loop, and for the first time this month, I started wondering how I could take this solid foundation and actually give it some depth. Right now, the upgrading system is serviceable, but it was certainly lacking in variety. So I came up with what I felt was a really cool way to deepen the gameplay. Instead of upgrading character stats, what if we were upgrading individual abilities? Picture this, every character in your party starts with 2 base abilities for their class, but later in a run, you could swap out 4 other abilities that might debuff enemies, or attacks that do a ton of damage but maybe have a longer cooldown. This small change in direction gives so much potential for making different builds and truly controlling how a run plays out. On paper, this idea felt way more interesting than what we first started with. Suddenly, there were more decisions, more builds, and more ways to express yourself through the game. Because of that, week 2 felt like I had been making major progress super fast. I still didn't pick a name yet, but I decided I'd figure that out later when all my ideas felt more concrete. And so week 3 is when I had to pay for this new change in direction. Seemingly out of nowhere, I wasn't feeling great about the game. And what confused me the most was that nothing was actually wrong. The idea was cool, the game was playable, and I was even having fun when I sat down to test it. By all logic, this should have been the part I felt excited about. Instead, I started losing a lot of momentum. Every day, it felt harder to actually open Unity and work, not because the game was broken, but because the scope of it had quietly grown into something overwhelming. Anytime I thought about the game, it filled me with anxiety. The more I wondered what the game could be, the further away the finish line felt. I had turned one small idea into a tangle of systems that all needed to be balanced. And suddenly, it felt like I was chipping away at something that I'd never be able to complete on time. And here's the realization that hit me the hardest. The thing that excites me the most about game development, imagining possibilities, daydreaming about the things I could make, these are the exact things that keep me from finishing games. I wasn't failing because I lacked skill. I was failing because I kept pushing the finish line further away every time I got close to it. I think on some level, that felt safer, because as long as something isn't finished, it can't disappoint anyone, including myself. I realized I'd been avoiding small decisions too, even things like giving the game a name, because every decision made the finish line feel more real. Once I saw that clearly, the choice became obvious. It was time to let go. I started by cutting a lot of my ideas, even ones that I liked. I simplified the upgrade system, no more infinite build potential. I stopped chasing the best possible version of the game I had in my head, instead focusing on the smallest version of the game that could actually be considered finished. That version wasn't perfect. Its flaws were hard-coded into the way I designed it from the start. But for the time being, the game stopped feeling impossible, and I decided right then and there that it was in fact finishable. Week 4 felt totally different. Once I stopped trying to make the perfect game, it finally felt possible to finish it. I actually landed on a name for the game, Automatic Battle Party. Not the most clever or original idea, I'll admit, but it's a little symbolic if you think about it. For weeks, I've been avoiding naming the game entirely. Picking a name makes something feel final, and I think that's the feeling I had been subconsciously running from this whole time. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what a game is called, but a game does need a name to be published, so you just gotta pick something. Once I crossed that line, everything else got a lot easier. I stopped second guessing, I stopped judging unfinished pieces as failures. I think it's pretty noticeable in the art I made in the last week. It all looks pretty rushed, but the game wouldn't be finished if I didn't rush these parts, so I call it a win. The most noticeable difference in this week compared to others was how much fun I was having developing again. I got my girlfriend to record some sound effects for enemies, which was hilarious. I quickly threw together some music and a logo, and just in time for day 30, Automatic Battle Party was published and complete. The final version of the game has lots of flaws that are deeply baked into its design. Some systems are much simpler than I originally wanted, especially the upgrade system feels a little too numbery and boring. Some ideas that I originally thought were bare minimum requirements didn't even make it to the final version. But you know what? For the first time, that doesn't feel like a loss. I did what I set out to do. I released a video game. Finishing this game taught me something that I didn't really understand before. Finish lines aren't something to be scared of. They're actually a release of pressure. When you know something has to be done by a certain time, you stop treating every decision like it's permanent. You start accepting that not everything needs to be perfect. And as a solo developer, that mindset is kind of everything. When you're working alone, every decision feels huge. Every idea feels like it might make or break the game. But after finishing this one, I've realized that the only decision that truly matters is whether or not you're going to finish at all. It felt really good to release a game. I'm proud of it. Even if there's a small part of me that is disappointed to leave a genuinely good idea in a state where it clearly has room to grow, at the same time, I'm happy to be moving on, because now I can start my next project with a better idea of what I can accomplish in a month. I like the idea of Automatic Battle Party being a snapshot of where I was at the start of 2026. Anyone can go play it and see what I was working on at the time. That feels way better than another unfinished prototype left in my Unity folders. You can go play any of my games using the link below. None of them are perfect, but I do feel quite proud of them. Here's the thing. It's not like finishing a single game in a month magically fixed my process. There's still a lot to learn, so there's only one logical decision to make. For the rest of this year, I am releasing 12 games. That's right, one game every single month. If I was able to learn this much about myself through one game, imagine what I could learn from 12. Now, in order for this to be possible, I have to work under 3 non-negotiable rules. Number 1, every game has a true deadline. No matter what, a game will be released on the final day of each month. No matter what state it's in, it'll be published. Number 2, each game will be a completely different genre. In order to make sure I'm maximizing my learning, there's no repeat months. Each game is going to have a totally different vibe. And finally, rule 3, which is arguably the hardest one. Once a game is finished, I won't be returning to it. No bug fixing or updates, no planning for the future. I want each game to be a snapshot of where I was at that point in time. So Automatic Battle Party is really just part one of this journey, and hopefully by the end of this year we can look back at this game and see just how much I've grown as a developer. This wasn't really a video about making an auto battler, it was about learning how to stop running from the finish line. If any of this feels familiar to you, I hope at the very least it made you feel less alone, and at the most, it inspired you to start finishing your own games. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys at the end of next month. Peace.